Before we go into the public hearing, I'd like to ask Mr. Page, if he would, to give us a brief summary of the action that's being asked of the City Council tonight. Mr. Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. This item is a request from Brookstown Partners, LLC, and Sports Menagerie, LLC, for city financial assistance totaling $29,292,000 towards the construction of a mixed-use development. Phase 1 of the development is a 5,500-seat baseball stadium. Phase 2 includes a mixed-use development which could include offices, retail, residential space, and a possible movie theater. The total private investment in the project is anticipated to be approximately $189 million over a 15-year period. While the action tonight only approves the city's participation in Phase 1 and the developer is committing to Phase 1, it's anticipated that Phase 2 will occur at a later date. And even though Phase 2 is not guaranteed at this point, neither is the city's actual participation in Phase 2. The city's participation in Phase 2 would be considered by council at the appropriate time based on the development occurring as outlined in the exhibit that you have before you, being Exhibit A. The proposal that you have before you tonight, of the $29 million, $11 million would actually be in city upfront incentives to go towards Phase 1 public infrastructure improvements, site preparation costs, and stadium construction. $1 million of the investment will come from the Economic Development Fund, and the other $10 million will be financed over 20 years. That total financing would actually be $20,280,000. The city's debt service to cover the financing would come from 3 sources that are all guaranteed sources. Those sources are a surcharge on baseball tickets, Wake Forest purchase of Ernie Shore Field, and the property taxes from Phase 1. Combined, those 3 sources generate approximately $21.3 million in Phase 1. The total city participation in Phase 1 is approximately $21.2 million. So you see that while there is a net profit for the city over the entire 25-year period of the financing in Phase 1 for the stadium. In addition to the $11 million that is being provided to the developer up front, an additional $8,012,000 will be provided over a 25-year period. However, the assistance would not be provided until Phase 2 is actually developed. So the initial Phase 1 is just the $22 million baseball stadium. As Phase 2 is developed, the developer would then start receiving incentive payments towards the $8 million. The cumulative grants for Phase 2 would never exceed 100% of the cumulative property taxes generated by Phase 2. When the construction of Phase 2 is completed, the city would also agree to purchase up to 1,000 parking deck spaces from the developer. However, all of these spaces would have to be self-financing using sources such as property taxes from Phase 2, ticket surcharges, parking fees, square footage surcharges, or other associated fees. The city's actual participation again in Phase 2 would be determined as this phase is better defined. Based on the developer's proposed build-out schedule, the $189 million would generate more than $18 million in new city property taxes over the 25-year period. Of this amount, Phase 1 would generate approximately $2.3 million, and Phase 2 revenues could exceed $8.5 million, and that's after the incentive payments have been made to the developer. At the end of the finance, and I think we discussed this at the Finance Committee, what happens with the stadium at the end of financing. We've actually been in conversations with Forsyth County since the Finance Committee meeting, so this changes from what was reported at Finance Committee. But we did mention this at Finance Committee last week, week before last, that at the end of the financing, the baseball stadium, the original thought was that would go to the ownership of the city and the county. However, after having additional conversations with Forsyth County, they have decided that they do not want a portion of the ownership at the end of the financing. Thus, at the end of the financing, the city would agree to purchase from the county its pro rata share of the baseball stadium based on their investment and based on the current appraised fair market value of the stadium at that time. Should you decide to go forward with this action tonight, you do have to replace as a new resolution that basically states what I've just explained regarding the the city purchasing the county share of the stadium at the end of the debt service on the stadium. What you'll be approving tonight is a resolution, but also what we're showing as Exhibit A. Exhibit A basically states the guidelines under which the attorneys will draw up the actual agreement. So this is not an agreement that you have before you, but the basis for the agreement that the attorneys would actually work from once this action is approved, if such. Be happy to answer any questions you may have on this project.
Derek, going back to the three sources of revenue you mentioned that would cover the city's upfront investment in the stadium, the new property taxes generated by the stadium itself. In other words, the stadium is on the tax books itself and will pay taxes.
That's correct, Mayor. And the taxes are actually based on the new increment. A value of $3.6 million currently exists on those properties now that the stadium will sit on. So what we're actually doing is we have subtracted that 3.6 from the $22.6 million development and are only counting the taxes on the new $19 million. So in addition to getting the taxes that we're already receiving on the property, we'll also get those net new taxes on the property.
So it is a true net increase. And then the $1 per ticket surcharge, we're counting on 350,000 tickets per year, and that number is guaranteed by the developer.
That is correct.
And of course, the third source is the purchase of Ernest Shoreville Wake Forest University. So it's very easy to say that this upfront investment by the city is truly guaranteed by secure revenue sources.
That is correct.
Okay. Councilmember Burke has a question.
Yes, since this is such a discussed issue concerning this baseball stadium or whatever you're going to do, taxpayers have asked questions, and some says that the figures that we're using are not true figures, and I feel that we need to give the figures that we are using, if they're real figures, they're true. Do we have anything to hide? One or two people who may be dissatisfied and feel that this is not something that they can agree, then they will be the ones to speak out. And maybe some of the silent people who are understanding what's going on, not speaking out. But those who are saying these things, I feel, Mayor and members of this council and to this city manager who is responsible for this city, when you get down to it, we need to know, are those true figures?
Are these the right figures? And I think Mr. Page can comment on that, but I think the fact that it's taken about 3 years to put this project together is the fact that the staff, Mr. Page, has worked so hard to get this structured in a way that the revenues are there. But I'll certainly let Mr. Page comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor. And as Mayor stated, we've been working on these figures for some time. Myself, the finance director, and the city manager have been working on these figures for some time. And in fact, these are the correct figures, Councilman Burke. One of the reasons that we have not been able to share the figures publicly is because, keep in mind that it was a city-county project, and because we were a little bit ahead of the county, at one point there was a concern that we would be releasing information before the county commissioners had an opportunity to get the exact same information. Thus, because of the confidentiality of the project, we were asked to hold that information, but anyone that's ready to see the information that is available at this point because it has been shared now with both the city and the county elected bodies.
That's very good.
Yes.
And that question is, yes, these are true figures.
That's the bottom line. Councilmember Terry.
I would simply add to Councilmember Burke's comments the fact that structuring of this type of deal, if it can be made a little bit easier to be understood by the ordinary citizen, is the objective, I think, for a council like us. Because after all, ordinary citizens that I represent need to have a better understanding or a clearer understanding about the structuring of the deal.
Thank you, Councilmember Terry. You have a question for Councilmember Bessie, Marshall, then I'll come to Councilmember Bessie.
Okay. Dirk, just two fairly simple questions. One issue that I've heard from baseball fans, ardent and longtime baseball fans, is a concern about the surcharge and that actually increasing the cost for a night out at baseball. Will you address that? And then I have another question.
Okay, and the developer is here that can respond, but if I say anything wrong, Mr. Prim, please jump in there. But the surcharge will be added to the cost of the baseball tickets. However, right now, when a patron goes to a baseball game, not only do they pay for the ticket, they also pay for parking. Under the new proposal, parking will be provided free of charge. So the parking is covered in the cost of the baseball ticket. And it's the estimate of Mr. Prim that the cost will actually go down slightly based on the current prices of a ticket.
Okay, thank you. And then just, I don't want to oversimplify, but I know there's so many dollar amounts that are being kind of bandied about, but let me just make sure and state it very clearly. The $11 million in is very much like an $11 million purchase of a home. If you finance that home over a 20 or 25-year period, then what we're reflecting in our financing charges is the cost, the total cost of the money long term, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so the upfront, though it is a fairly significant amount of money, it is $11 million, but the total cost of the financing, the actual APY, I guess, will be the higher of the two, the 21.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Bessie, you had a question of Mr. Page.
Yes, thank you, Mr. I have to raise this for further clarification because I had studied the numbers based on the resolution as it appeared in the packet, and the addition regarding the city agreement to consolidate ownership of the stadium between the city and the county. I frankly need to ask about the financial significance of that. Do you have any projections on estimated cost or the mechanisms that you would anticipate being used by the city to buy the county share at that point?
As far as the anticipated cost, anything that we have at this point would be pure speculation of a stadium that doesn't exist today, trying to determine what a value will be 25 years in the future and not even know what the current value is when it's built. So, no, sir, we don't have a estimate. We would think that given the fact that our share will probably be closer to 70 to 75% of it, you're looking at about 25 to 30% of that value being the portion that we would be purchasing from the county. While we've not determined what sources we'd be looking at or what instrument we'd be looking at to actually finance that, the two primary options would be either if there are general obligation bonds available at that point, we don't know. There could be special obligation bonds or there could be COPs. Any of those possible mechanisms could be used to purchase the county share of the stadium at that point.
Well, I have to follow up. One of the principal evaluations of the proposal that has been placed on the table this evening is that it is a pay-for-itself proposal. How does the city's agreement to purchase from the county its ownership share affect our ability to assert in good faith that this is that it remains a pay-for-itself proposal?
Of course, at that point, what you're doing is you're actually purchasing an asset, which we purchase assets all the time, but we'll be purchasing their portion of an asset from them and then have that value coming back to the city. Not knowing what that cost is going to be 25 or 27 years out, we would keep in mind that we've also, as part of our entire projection package, we've used a fixed tax rate, plus we've used no increase in property tax values over that 25 to 27 year period. So that probably isn't realistic either. So we think that there is growth inherent in this project, that we're not counting that growth, that we'll be able to, at some point in the future, say that, yes, these are the revenues that we can stash aside to possibly use for future purchase of the county share. But there again, not knowing what that cost is going to be until we get much closer, or until we can get a product built that we can appraise and sort of project out what that value is. We don't know what we'll be purchasing from them at this point.
Just to
Mr. Best, may I just add to his answer that keep in mind at the end of this 25-year period, all of the city's other obligations have been satisfied, so we will have the tax revenues from the entire project available to the city to cover any COPS issuance that we might need to do to take the county's share out. So I think we can still say, and certainly in good faith, that the project does pay for itself because of those additional tax revenues that's available to us at that point. Thank you for.
Yes, thank you. Actually, for clarification purposes, the other agreements of the city will have simultaneously or previously expired. So at that point, we would no longer be under any commitment with regard to either the parking spaces, the incentives payments, and the team would be in a position of needing to negotiate a new contract
That's
for use
correct.
of the stadium. Okay.
I think that's a great point right there.
All right. Thank you. That does respond to my question.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. We have a number of individuals signed up to speak, and would remind the speakers that would ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please, and if you would also state your name and address when you come to the podium. First speaker is Mr. Larry Ice. I believe it is.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr.
My name
Ice.
is Larry Ice. I live at 1549 Shore Road in Winston-Salem. Mr. Mayor, council members, fellow citizens, tonight I come here to ask the council to delay the vote on item 10, the stadium tax incentive request by Brooktown Development. The request to delay the vote would allow citizens time to review the proposal and provide input. I became concerned about the project, and I did some investigation on tax incentives for sports stadiums. I discovered some unsettling information along the way. A good book to read is by Greg Leroy, The Great American Job Scam. In that book, the author offers many examples of misuse of tax incentives. He lays out ways to developers lead officials to vote them huge tax incentives. Mr. Leroy in the Heartland Institute, a think tank, finds that developers promise great benefits to the community, benefits which virtually never materialize. Some developers play fast and loose with figures, paint rosy pictures, and promise the world in return for tax incentives. Time and again, the community is forced to pick up the pieces left by the developers. Unfortunately, we are presented with this like situation this evening. Vague projections, promises, and verbal guarantees do not a strong basis for approving $29 million in tax incentives. The timing is poor for the request. The council needs to allow additional time for taxpayer input. I suggest a later meeting in February. Some facts that led to my suggestion are: the proposed cost of $29 million is based on projections that seem unsupported. While there is a guarantee of the $350,000 per season by Mr. Prim, I feel that that projection the projection for the advanced ticket sales is too optimistic, and it's based on warthog attendance. The revitalization portion is vague on what the city can expect. Nothing has been said about who pays the maintenance on the facilities after the city buys the facilities. Some questions I have. How is the loss of tax revenue to be recouped? Will eminent domain be used to secure any of the land? What becomes of the people living in these areas? Will any new jobs be generated? For $29 million, I was kind of looking for some additional jobs. I could go on, but I think the picture is clear.
You have about 10 seconds, Mr. Rice, please.
The way is clear. Please delay the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Mr. Bob Leake, please.
Good evening, Mayor Joines, members of the council. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope it's a good one. My name is Bob Leake. My address is 1080 West 4th Street, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27101. I've been an economic development professional for now almost 25 years, and I can tell you that every day as an economic development professional, I try to really worry about two battles. One is the battle to be considered. The other is the battle not to be eliminated. There are an awful lot of communities out there that are looking for new companies, looking for new investment, looking for new jobs, looking for new opportunities for their citizens. And unfortunately, a lot of those companies look and feel very similar to communities like Winston-Salem. And so it's inherent on us to try to help come up with things to differentiate ourselves. Companies use several measures when selecting communities for consideration. Of course, available sites, buildings, transportation, well-trained available workforce are just a few. But more often than not, it's the community's quality of life, or lack thereof, that helps to differentiate one community from another. Winston-Salem is blessed with an exceptional quality of life. Our physical location, climate, cost of living, arts and culture, colleges and universities all help us to stand apart from competition. Well, the addition of this proposed baseball stadium in downtown Winston-Salem will further enhance our growing reputation as a vibrant place to live, to work, and to play. The economic impact of a new stadium can be quite large. One doesn't have to look far from the stadiums in nearby Durham or Greensboro to see the economic transformation that is occurring where blighted properties once stood. The new stadium and the proposed commercial development that will follow will continue to bolster our re-emerging downtown efforts. And unlike the high-priced professional sports in Charlotte, minor league baseball is fun and affordable for most families. From what I know about this project, it's a good deal for the city of Winston-Salem. Mr. Prim and his partners, along with the city and staff, have worked diligently for months to create a win-win opportunity for all involved. I encourage you to vote yes for this exciting proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leake. Mr. Steve Snellgrove, please. Would state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Steve Snellgrove. I live at 312 Springwater Court, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27106. Good evening, Mayor Joines, members of the City Council. I am the chairman of the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership, and we've been aware of this project for quite a period of time now. And as you know, in the plan that you support for downtown, sports venue has been a major component of that plan. The Downtown Partnership Executive Committee met today and has offered a resolution in support of this downtown ballpark. You hopefully have that in your folders, and I'd like to read it for you. Whereas the Executive Committee of the Board of Directors of the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership enthusiastically supports the ballpark proposal being considered by the City of Winston-Salem and located in downtown Winston-Salem. And whereas the ballpark project will greatly benefit Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, and the Piedmont region as a destination that will bring many new visitors to our downtown area to the benefit of the entire community. And whereas the ballpark project is consistent with a long-range downtown development plan, the primary goal of which is to make downtown Winston-Salem a regional destination to live, work, and be entertained. And whereas the Executive Committee of the Board of Directors of the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership believes it to be in the best interest of downtown Winston-Salem and the City of Winston-Salem to encourage the development of the proposed baseball park. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Executive Committee of the Board of Directors of the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership enthusiastically supports the downtown ballpark proposal under consideration by the City of Winston-Salem and urges the City Council to approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delgrove. Mr. Bill Benton, please.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm Bill Benton. I live at 71 Park Boulevard. That's in Washington Park, about a mile south of the proposed site. My offices are at 1105 Brookstown. I'm a property owner there, and that's in the West End neighborhood, less than a mile from the site. And in trying to think about factors that would qualify me to speak in favor of this project to you tonight, I can offer you proximity and longevity. I've been involved with development in the downtown Winston-Salem area for over 30 years, I hate to say, going all the way back to about 1973 with the Winston-Salem Hyatt House. And in all that time, I can't think of a more compelling project than the ballpark. It's compelling on a lot of different levels. It's positive on all those levels, and it makes very few negative demands on anybody. It makes a tremendous contribution to the immediate site. We all know the problems right there. I have to drive down Broad Street twice a day at least. It's going to be nothing but positive there. To the West End neighborhood, to the West Salem neighborhood, and to the CBD, it makes a contribution that other people have already talked about. But it's very positive. It's going to bring 350-some-odd-thousand people into the area. And the great thing about it is they don't even have to drive through the neighborhoods because the exits off the interstate are already there. It's a perfect site. And finally, from an economic development point of view, I think it's a tremendously compelling project for the city and the county and the region as a whole, precisely because of all of those positive things that it does. And I really hope you'll support the proposal. I highly recommend it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Benton. Mr. Virgil Gall, please. Thank you, Ms. Gall.
I'm Virgil Goff. I live at 1461 Norwich Road, Winston-Salem. I live in the south. I believe I'm in the southeast ward right now. I just wanted to go on record saying I oppose this project and the tax money that's going into it, most of the tax money. I think that it's too big a burden on the taxpayers. We have put a lot of tax money into another project out east of town, and I think that if we keep doing this, we're going to run the city into bankruptcy because we're talking about loans and stuff like that. And to repay these loans, there's going to have to be a tax increase, even though maybe you think there's not, but there's going to be a tax increase. And this project here really sounds special, and I would say it sounds grandiose. And I'm sort of alarmed at projects that sound like this because, you know, the old cliche says if something sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't true. Okay, and I use sort of an example of the project out here on West 4th Street where the old Chevrolet place was. I understood that when they built this thing, that there was a number of people in it, a number of entities, and that we were going to have theaters out there. There's going to be an IMAX theater, there's going to be restaurants, there's going to be performance stages, and performance areas for us. All that fell through. After the thing was approved, the whole mess fell through except for the housing part. Well, that's fine and dandy for people who want to live here in town. But I just want you to see that everything that really looks good is not that good. And I don't think this part here is that good. Personally, I don't think the stadium downtown is a place to be. If any of y'all, I don't know how many of y'all attend ball games at Shore Field. I do. I have 2 season tickets, and I've had these tickets for the past 10 years. But we have a beautiful stadium up north of town. Beautiful. This stadium is pristine. You look at the grass, you look at the seating, you look at the arrangement, the way it's done. It's been well kept. We've got a beautiful stadium there. We have ample parking all the way around the stadium. There's no problem with parking. Also, there are many streets in that area. There are wide streets that allow egress and for traffic to come in and traffic get away from the stadium in a quick way. And I can't possibly, in my mind, understand why anybody would want to move a stadium down to the middle of town like this, when you've got a facility like this up north of town. I feel like that the Wake Forest has a ball stadium. I've been to ball games at Wake Forest out there. It's on their campus, and I'll tell you, if we disapprove this thing and keep this tax money, maybe we could help Wake Forest like their ball stadium. They wouldn't need this Ernest Shore Field. And Ernest Shore
About
Field.
10 seconds, Mr. Gow.
Good. Thank you. I think that, okay, if we build this private stadium, it's only going to benefit just a few of our taxpayers, and the rest of the taxpayers are going to be
Your time's up, Mr. Gow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Von Kaysen, please.
Mayor Joins, City Council members, thank you for this opportunity. I am known as Von Kaysen. I reside at 5610 Novak Street, 27105. I have concerns, and one being, I think with the football game that was televised last night, and in past years, the NCAA Wake Forest representing Winston-Salem. And with that in mind, we got a lot of media coverage. We got that which is perhaps needed for the city to obtain notoriety. And I'm looking at the fact that it is prime time, in my opinion, that we start looking at professionalism at a professional sporting team. And this area may be a prime area for that particular avenue. Professional baseball is grand in my mind. Minor league, I'm not interested. I am a fan of a professional baseball team, and I think with a professional baseball team, the enhancement that it would bring to the city would be broad. You look at the fact that one in particular, there's a concern about the PTI airport, the fares that are being charged, people flying in and out of it. With that, as some airlines may claim that with more ridership that would lower the cost. You're wanting to push the park transportation or system. I'm thinking about the many people who are interested and never seen a professional baseball team will come from various states to be a part of that. I'm looking at the fact that for five-star hotel, if there is one in the city and one in the area, where is there one? That would, I think, enhance also that particular hotel. I'm just looking at the fact that Winston-Salem and the area is due for a professional team. And if you're talking baseball, why not build one with the professional team in mind? And I'm thinking with positive attitude or with the same endeavor or with the same effort that you're putting forth for a minor league team, the same effort should be put forth for a professional team. And I think it would surely make a pleasurable time for anyone living in the city to be a part of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Caroline Esmond, excuse me, Ms. Esmond. Thank you.
I'm Caroline Esmond, and I reside at 112 Carisbrook Lane, Winston, 27104. First, I want to say I'm very excited about all the revitalization that the city, all the efforts the city has put through the past 2 years. However, in my heart, I cannot support public funds being used to finance private enterprise. In essence, we, the taxpayers, are being asked to take the project risk if this project fails, not the developer. Now, I understand we're hanging our head on the fact that Mr. Prim has agreed to guarantee $350,000 in revenues to the city for 25 years. No disrespect meant to Mr. Prim. However, how is he planning to back up that guarantee? Is he putting up a bond or a letter of credit? From my perspective, the city council has adopted a build it and they will come attitude. Where's the feasibility study that supports this project? It's a matter of public record that subsidized stadiums do not pay for themselves, and what makes the city council and Mr. Prim believe that Winston-Salem is different. I feel like the city has a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Winston-Salem to invest only in projects that make sense for the city. From what I've been able to determine from everything in the newspapers, et cetera, we need 91% attendance to make this go. Greensboro Grasshoppers has been a very successful franchise. They only have 86% attendance. I concur with Mr. Ice. I think we need to defer this and have more information provided to the citizens before you can take a vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esmond. Jack Fisher, I believe it is. Jack Fisher, please.
Evening. I'm Jack Fisher, 3408 Mill Run Lane in Pofftown, North Carolina. And I want to thank the mayor and the council for allowing me a chance to speak, because I am definitely one of the more ordinary citizens that we have around here. I want to say, first of all, that spending public money for private business is just wrong. It's wrong. We're talking about millions of taxpayer dollars for individuals who certainly don't seem to need the city's welfare check. If it's going to be a profitable transaction, why can't it stand on its own? And remember something, as the city council members in the city of Winston-Salem, you don't have any money. You have the citizens' money. That's what you have. Now, I know you're really concerned with the downtown area. And sometimes the people who don't live downtown feel like the only thing we're good for is footing the bills. The argument that surcharges on tickets are going to pay, for the giveaway seems to falter when you stop and think that tickets are not selling that well now. And by the way, I've been to the games, and I didn't have to pay for parking, and I didn't sneak in anywhere either. To say this venture is going to pay for itself, I don't think is true. Increased property taxes and raising taxes means the citizens are going to pay. The city budget is the citizens. The citizens are just going to get hosed once again. You have a city that will have a wonderful downtown, but you also have a lot of citizens on the skirts around that still have outhouses. Isn't that a great thing to be known for? Beautiful downtown and outhouses outside. The problem, as many of us see it, comes frankly from the ward system. People who are interested in one area. I think we need to get away from that so we have people who are interested in the entire city, all the city at one time. Now, you feel safe, I'm sure, knowing that only 6% of the people voted last time. They sent you a clear message that you can do whatever you want, and frankly, I blame the citizens. Because, we get the government we always deserve. And I think each one of you have to admit, 94% of the people not voting is a pretty poor thing. Raising taxes, forcing annexation to balance budgets won't work forever. You're running out of victims. And I bet you eminent domain is not going to be far behind. In fact, a lot of people who are going to be forced out of their homes for this project would probably tell you it's already here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jack Smith, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Happy New Year. I'm here in favor of the baseball proposal, and the reason I came here is I thought there were a number of groups that would benefit. One of the groups are the senior citizens that we were talking about. If you read the article in this morning's paper about Winston-Salem being a top city for senior citizens, this would be something that would attract people from other areas coming here. Another group that would benefit from this, I think, are young professionals. It would be a reason for young professionals to stay in the Winston area. I myself have two daughters, one daughter who's moved to another city, Charleston, because there were more things to do. They kept on telling me there's not enough to do here. We have to have some type of place like this where young professionals can go. Another one that would benefit, I think, are the students that go to the schools, the 50,000 students that go to schools in Winston-Salem. This would be an opportunity for them to go to a great ballpark, something that, and that whole area looks like it's going to be terrific. It could be a flagship for Winston-Salem. And also, as you know, we have a number of international relations now with groups in Europe, in Africa. We have the Bahamas, and now we have China. What a great place to entertain these people when they come to Winston-Salem. We could take them to a ball game. Obviously, the Chinese are concerned about it. They're hosting the Olympic Games. And I think the fifth group that would benefit from all of this financially and in every respect would be all of the people of Winston-Salem. That's how I feel about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Kathy Pounds.
Hi, I'm Kathy Pounds. I live at 1102 Melrose Street. And I understand that when you make decisions like this, you have a lot of balls to juggle, and I'd like to make sure that a couple of the ones that I'm interested in are in play. And I think it's very important when you consider everything else that you have to also consider how public money is used, and does it encourage what we want to encourage. For instance, if we're using public money, will it encourage and subsidize the best practices in design and construction? And that would be design and construction today that's energy efficient, that makes good use of resources, and that doesn't damage the environment. Also, is the money that we'll be spending going to promote the goals of the legacy plan, the community plan that lots of us worked on for many years and would like to see come to fruition? I'm particularly interested in the aspects of the legacy plan which envision less driving by individuals in the future and more use of public transportation and easy and safe pedestrian access. And thirdly, I think that public funds should be used to limit our city's contribution to the greenhouse gases which contribute to global warming. I've read what's in the paper. I've tried to watch and listen to everything. So far, I haven't heard anything that assures me that the public money that would be used would promote these goals that we want for the future. For instance, the free parking is encouraging people to drive rather than encouraging the use of public transportation. There should be access right in front of the stadium for people so they don't have to drive. The people who are living downtown have a great resource, but we don't expect them to really have to get in a car and drive 6 blocks or a mile. It should be easy. It should be safe. What we need to do is, if we have a dollar surcharge on a ticket, it should go to pay for mass transit so people don't have to pay for it today. So I think what we need to do when we're thinking of how we spend our public money is we need to use that public money to incentivize the kind of future we want. Right now, some of it may be looking backward with old forms of construction, old forms of demolition, getting rid of people. But we need to make sure that our transportation and our building processes are all looking ahead, just like we're looking ahead for downtown. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Pounds. George Bryan, please.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. George Bryan at 1001 Renolda Road, 27104. I'm here to speak in favor tonight of the ballpark. I've been involved with this area for 30 years. With the Broad Street changes for the past 4 years, we're still waiting on for that to happen, and happen in conjunction with this. Helped to rebuild the West End and its historic designation, supported certainly the Burke Street and its businesses there, negotiated with the past with several businesses, including Wachovia and West End Village. Been involved in the Western Downtown Crime Initiative, this is a prime area that this affects, and certainly involved in the South Central Area Plan where we looked at this area. So I'm speaking tonight from that aspect, but also as president of the West End of the Winston-Salem Neighborhood Alliance. I've touched base with the West End neighborhood, the Holly Avenue neighborhood, and West Salem neighborhood leadership to find how they feel, as well as sought input from other neighborhoods across our community. Tonight I address specific support to this site because of the tremendous opportunities that we saw with the South Central Plan. And Billy Cram and Brookstown Development are getting a gem with this. It's great transportation, it's adjacent to wonderful neighborhoods and retail, and it really has the opportunity to build what is happening in Winston-Salem to the west. The other factor is that we have had a persistent problem with crime in this area. It's been just ridden with crime over time. The city has spent tremendous amounts of dollars in intense crime control in this area, and I'm looking forward to the time when this can be alleviated and some of those dollars can be spent somewhere else. We know that this will make a difference in that area. We also know that there will continue to be challenges as we put retail and baseball stadiums next to residential places. We're used to this in the West End, we're used to this in West Salem and Holly Avenue, and we're willing to work with the developers in looking at good solutions for this. But lastly, let me remind the public of something that we in the neighborhoods know. That when we look toward the legacy and when we look toward the development that was in the South Central Area Plan, we knew that this was designated as our urban residential gateway. So we're not just building a ballpark here, we're not just building retail, we're building a gateway into the city coming off Peters Creek which definitely needs improvement, which has the possibility of really making a difference to the city, and an improvement that we were going to spend some dollars in anyway to help this city grow. So thank you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mr. Ron Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Ron Wellman, and I'm a resident of 704 West Green Court in Winston-Salem. And I also serve as the athletic director of Wake Forest University, and obviously am very supportive of this project. As you know, we have partnered with the city and Mr. Prim in the purchase of Ernie Shore Field. A number of years ago, we were looking at the possibility of renovating our current ballpark, Hook Stadium, which is on our campus. And that project would have cost us millions of dollars and frustrated a number of our neighbors. As you may or may not know, we are the only team in the ACC that does not have lights. And part of the project that we were considering for Hook Stadium was the erection of lights on that ballpark or on that ball field. That ball field sits in the center of campus, or right on the edge of campus, I should say, next to a number of our neighborhoods, and that would have created some issues with those neighbors. And when this possibility became available, we certainly pursued it and looked at every possibility and every angle of this possibility as to whether this ballpark could become the home of our baseball team. After much investigation and discussion with Mr. Prim, we decided that this would be a logical choice for a ballpark for Wake Forest University. We already have our football team playing in that vicinity. We have our basketball team playing in that vicinity. So this would locate our three highest attended sports in the same area. And we believe that that would be beneficial to us, obviously, but also beneficial to the fans of Wake Forest, who could find that ballpark much easier than they can find the ballpark that resides at Hook Stadium on our campus. Second reason that we are supportive of this is that as the university, you know that we have been very interested in the revitalization of the downtown. The research park is certainly a major project for our university that we believe will eventually become the gateway to the city from the east. We believe that this project can become the gateway to the city from the west. And so we are very interested in this project and supportive of the project as a university because of the impact that it can have upon the city. Finally, I serve as the ACC Baseball Committee Chairman. And every year we decide where we are going to take our baseball tournament. And there have been numerous cities pursuing the ACC tournament, the baseball tournament, cities from Maryland all the way
we have about 10 seconds, please, if you want.
To southern Florida. And I assure you that every city that has built a new downtown ballpark or a new ballpark has received many of the benefits that many have already spoken to this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wellman. That's all the individuals who had signed up to be heard on this item. Are there anyone else in the chamber who would like to hear? Yes, please come forward and state your name and address, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Greg Carlisle. I am a downtown business person. I'm a West Ender. I have been in this downtown area since 1978, different levels of success along the way. I admire many of the individuals and believe they have the vision to handle this property correctly. I believe that it will continue to enhance our inner city development. I live in the West End, 1183 West 4th Street, and there are neighborhoods adjacent or very close to where I live that could use some work. I feel that they are perhaps dangerous in many ways. According to this plan that I've looked at, I think it's going to clean up some more neighborhoods, make it a safer place for people. I think that it's going to tie the West End into the downtown area, and we're truly going to create a walking environment in our city. I believe that it will enhance everyone's business in the downtown area, including mine. If that is self-serving, I'm sorry. The Millennium Center is, you know, we need all the help we can get to come on downtown and do what our dreams and goals are. And I believe this entire concept is magic for the entire downtown area. And the price that we perhaps will pay for this as citizens, I believe will be money well spent, particularly if we're looking in terms of long-term, bringing our community together and continuing on the road to the renaissance of our inner city. I believe it's going to benefit everyone. I would like to think that, yes, it'd be great. The gentleman spoke earlier about as I think he implied, a true professional team being here. I assume he is referring to Major League Baseball here. And I overheard someone comment about a soccer stadium. I think all of this is great, but I do think we have to take one step at a time. And I believe for us to get this stadium here is going to enhance our city in ways that we won't even realize until perhaps years have gone by. So I'm in support of this, and I hope the council will consider this as an opportunity and something that we all have to have a little bit of vision, a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope in this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Anyone else who would like to be heard?